welcome to God's 5 Minutes with Pastor Ed Wilson. Reach him at GodsFiveMinutes@gmail.com. Now, here's Ed Wilson with God's 5 Minutes.
Hello, friends. Genesis 3:24 reads, "So he drove out the men, and he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden cherubims and a flaming sword which turned every way to keep the way to the tree of life." Thus closes the beautiful biblical story of man's creation into a delightful environment, followed by its sad ending with his exclusion from his intended home because of sinful disobedience. But this story from the first book of the Bible has its counterpart in the following verse from the last book of the Bible, Revelations 22:14. "Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life and may enter in through the gates into the city." Solomon wisely told us the end of a thing is better than its beginning. Eden was fair, but the heavenly city shall be fairer. Paradise regained is superior to the paradise that was lost. These are the two ends of the history of man, separated by who knows how many millenniums. Heaven lay about him in his infancy, but as he journeyed westwards, its morning blush faded into the light of common day. And only at eventide shall the sky glow again with glory and color, and the western heaven at last outshine the eastern with a light that shall never die. A fall and a rise that reverses the fall, a rise that transcends the glory from which man fell. That is the Bible's notion of the history of the world. It is what the Christian believes to be true, for it supplies a satisfactory explanation of what we see around us and feel within. Look at the condition of the world, filled with degradation, savagery, pining multitudes, all its untold millions who sit in darkness and the shadow of death. How could anyone consider the actual state of just the heathen world and, retaining belief in God, conclude these things are what God meant man to be? But if anyone would take the alternately view, namely that there is no God, that we're all ascended from the primal ooze, how can anyone explain the experiences of spirit of the individual, unfulfilled yearnings, hard toil for inner calm, sorrows over loved ones who fail the bright hope of moral purity? How is it that man alone of all earth's creatures, clearly the only capable leader there has ever been among them, seems cursed with a higher nature that he may know greater sorrows, and finds himself raised above the beast in capacity that he may sink below them in woe, this capacity only leading to more exquisite susceptibility, to a more various as well as a more poignant misery, and that misery is everywhere evident. The most brilliant musicians of any age have continually written songs laced with bitter lamentations. Literature, all through the world's history, is characterized by tragedy, by dark and poignant expression of the dominant unhappiness of so much of the human race. Nothing explains these facts better than the old Bible story. Sin has done it. Sin is not part of God's original design, but man has fallen. Sin had a personal beginning. There have been men who were pure, able to stand, but free to fall. Granted, this explanation leaves many a dark and sorrowful mystery to be solved in another dispensation, yet it alleviates the blackest of them and throws some rays of hope on them all. For those who believe in God, this explanation relieves him of the charges of dishonor, poor administration, impotence that cause the poet to declare us children of a lesser God, and it delivers our human destiny from almost hopeless despair. The biblical explanation does not reveal the origin of evil, but it casts into sharp relief the central truths that evil is evil, that sin and sorrow are not God's will. It vindicates as something more than just fond imagination the vague aspirations of the soul for a fair and holy state. It establishes at once the love of God and the dignity of man. It provides a bright hope for the final overthrow of sin, which it treats as an intrusion and stigmatizes as a fall. Because of the Bible, we know there is hope and there is power, and there is a brightness thrown in the character of God and the fate of man by the whole belief, so out of work today, but still more capable of answering life's mystery than any other, that God made man upright and he made himself a sinner. Have you talked to God today?
You have been listening to God's 5 Minutes with Pastor Ed Wilson. Reach him by email at GodsFiveMinutes@gmail.com. Tune in next time to hear more encouraging thoughts from God's Word on God's 5 Minutes with Pastor Ed Wilson.